N'Keal Harry was an absolute steal at 32. What are you guys talking about? Forget Tom Brady's passing numbers. He's the GOAT because he was the best punter in the NFL. I take Johnny Hekker over Patrick Mahomes to be my quarterback any day.
Welcome to the No Punt Intended Sportscast with your host, Parody07.
Welcome back to the No Punt Intended Sportscast. I'm here with the DAWGS. And I'm hyped because it feels like months since we've done a podcast, but it's only been 2 little weeks. But in those two little weeks, there's been Christmas, there's been New Year's, there's been college ball, there's been NFL ball, there's been playoff teams decided, and we've got one more week of ball to play, fellas, and then the big dogs eat in the playoffs, and I'm looking forward to that. Not as much as I usually am, considering the Patriots are the worst offense statistically in the NFL, and not to be outdone by the Panthers, but that's okay. We'll all throw our drinks on fans when it's our time, but I'll leave that for you to talk about, LB. But New England's won a handful of games. All of our teams have at least looked competent at times over the past few weeks. But I think LB has the most relevant stuff to talk about as far as stuff that's relatively entertaining. That's right. I think David Tepper has stole the thunder from the Taylor Swift crowd as far as the attention of the world of memes and Twitter/X and all the places like Reddit that just love to talk crap about famous people. So here's your time to shine, regardless of whether you have a Twitter, regardless if you're on Reddit or Wattpad or whatever have you, LB, this is your time to speak up and to meme on your owner more than you usually get to. So let's hear, I'm sure, what you have to say about that, other than, of course, the travesty that has been this season for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, so I think the guy just finally snapped. I mean, seriously, it was a Week 17 game for those who are not familiar with this story and what Guy's been referencing. The meme of the year in my book.
Meme! Approved!
And not for a good reason. The Panthers owner, David Tepper, while in a 26-0 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, decided to assault multiple fans, by throwing a drink from his private box seats into the crowd. And, it was kind of funny to see the Panthers finally getting national media attention, but for the literal worst reason you could possibly get as a franchise. I don't know the guy for anything, so I can't judge him per se, but you can judge people's actions, and that's just a scumbag move, man. The guy's worth $20 billion, and to stoop to that level, to throw a drink on someone who, even if they're talking junk and chirping you the whole game, even if they're saying bad things, or even if they're making personal attacks, you have to be a bigger man. You have to understand the severity of your actions and what that can lead to. And that's something you can't do. You're representing not only the Panthers franchise, but one of 32 NFL teams. And it's a bad look on the NFL.
Facts.
He was fined $300,000, which to normal everyday Americans is a ton of money. However, for someone worth $20 billion, I think it was equivalent to someone who makes $80,000 a year being taxed or being fined under $1 if you were to ratio it and make it in relative terms. So now, look, I'm sure there's some sort of limit on what the NFL can fine owners or whatever. So that, that might have played into that $300,000 number being the fine.
I wonder who wrote that rule.
It was just crazy, man. And what I fear really going forward as a Panthers fan is that the Panthers turn into what the Redskins / Commanders have been over the last, 10 years in terms of just terrible product on the field, but equally terrible off the field issues within the organization.
Meme. Approved.
I mean, it's terrible. Like, they went from a really close game to Green Bay losing 33-30 to a night and day switch losing 26-0 in the span of 1 week. There's no consistency. Bryce Young looked horrible in that game. Offense looked terrible. Couldn't get anything going. I mean, we lost to a backup quarterback, for goodness sakes. And despite having the number 3 overall defense, we gave up 26 points to a banged-up Jaguars team. And going forward, our last game of the season is against the Buccaneers. I don't think we win that game at all. I think we lose 27-13, something in that ballpark. But yeah, the team's just it's rough going, man. And I really hope they don't blow up the team and ship what few pieces we have out of town. Like I mentioned, we have a number 3 overall defense. So there is a silver lining there. Defensive coordinator Vero has done a fantastic job this year. So there are, small building blocks to go forward from. They just have to figure out the coaching staff and offense. And I fear as long as David Tepper is in ownership, we will continue to see the same issues, and they will continue to be compounded year in and year out. So that's kind of the state of the Panthers. It is literally the lowest of low, I think, as a state of an organization in my entire fanhood of this team. I mean, yeah, there were times where we went 1-15, 2-14, et cetera, but in terms of the whole organization, ownership, fan base, morale, everything like that, player morale, it's just, in my observation, and being a fan of over 20 years of this team, it has been, I think, the lowest of low, at least in my lifetime and in what I can remember. So it's not looking too good, fellas.
At the very least, your ownership is if he doesn't want to break, if he doesn't want to have to assault fans of other teams, maybe he should, I don't know, put a good team on the field so that he doesn't have to worry about losing. That's just, especially to a backup quarterback. I mean, that's just a thought. I mean, I understand that it's the year of the backup quarterback with Bailey Zappi winning a game here and there, and Jake Browning taking over for Joe Coolman Burrow, and Joe Flacco having in a numerous amount of wins under his belt since he's come out of the grave. But at the same time, you got the number 3 defense on there. You got that year's number 1 overall pick with a 2nd round wide receiver. You paid good money to have a running mate to that receiver with Adam Thielen. At the very least, you would have thought that this team would have found a groove at some point, but it just never happened. And I feel for you, buddy, because, I mean, New England's not in that much of a different place. I mean, most of the statistics on New England's side are, if we're above you, we're always within 2 or 3 spots of the Panthers in almost every statistic, and it's really uncanny. But at the same time, I feel your pain. And I don't know if you got a call from David Tepper to defend that guy. I don't know, but if his attorney's going to be making some money, and more importantly, the people that were assaulted are going to make buco money to have to get those charges settled. But that's neither here or there. We'll never hear about it because the owners control the media as well as the rules of the NFL. So maybe they're to blame for the poor reffing this year and the last couple years. But Hound, the mighty Kansas City Chiefs that have not sniffed immortality in several years, have looked mighty mortal the last handful of weeks. Now you're winning games, but you're not winning them convincingly. And I would dare say your team is the least relevant has been since Patrick Mahomes' first start.
Whoa!
Right now. So what say you? What defend yourself, sir? I mean, what is going on in Big Red Kansas City?
Well, the good news is the Chiefs are going to the playoffs and having a home game, so that's always good news. We're locked into the 3rd seed, so this next week's basically a bye. So that's good news. We've won our 8th straight division title, so feels good. Hopefully the other teams in our division continue to be awful, and like everyone thought that our division was going to be amazing, and it turns out you could argue one of the weakest divisions in the league. So, anyways, if the Chiefs' defense has been doing good, doing amazing. I think it's the best that Patrick Mahomes has had. I think they're 3rd or 2nd in the league in scoring defense, and they just have the 2nd most sacks in the league, just behind the Ravens by like a couple. So they're doing good. We're on defense. Against the Patriots, I think we did fine defensively. We weren't, trying to do anything super special.
Not like you had to, but
not like we had to, right? It's like you don't need to try to change the reel if you don't want to try to reinvent yourself. Right. But in all actuality, the funniest thing is that the Chiefs defense was perhaps the most impressive versus the Raiders, which is the team we lost against. Because in that game, the Chiefs the Raiders the week before had scored over 60 points against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers isn't a good team, obviously, but 60 points is insane. Or maybe it was 56. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was 63. Anyways, they come to Kansas City, and the defense does not allow a single touchdown. The defense actually only allows 6 points total. 2 field goals, but our offense decides to have a fumble 6 and a pick 6 on back-to-back offensive plays to give the Raiders a total of 20 points. And our offense wasn't able to score that. So defensively, we're doing great, still doing well. We haven't had any major injuries. People are back. We have all of our linebackers back. It's great. The issue with the Chiefs is the offense, and the offense is what it is. Now, people are freaking out because, this looks completely different. The Chiefs' offense, like you hear everywhere, is awful, and it's not great. But to make a long story short, Chiefs' offense is around 10th to 12th in the league. The defense is pulling its weight, doing amazing. The big story with the Chiefs, obviously, is still drops because we lead the league in drops. Now, I would like to report Rashee Rice doing very well. If it weren't for the fact that we're basically benching our starters for the last game, he would probably have over 1,000 yards on the season. So that's great.
Nice.
And Isaiah Pacheco, if we weren't benching them in this last game, would have over 1,000 rushing yards on the season. And that's him missing a couple games already. And, but here's a little thing that I think people aren't talking about. Is the thing that people aren't talking about is Travis Kelce. They do when it relates to Taylor Swift, but if you look at Travis Kelce's performance on the field, something's not right. Now, Could it be age? Sure, maybe. And he's still like performing better than most or perhaps any other tight end in the league, basically. But considering how high his performance has been in past seasons, it's definitely taken a slight step backwards. Now, there are theories that it could be due to a lingering injury because if we remember, in the very first week of the year, he had that scary hyper extension injury that made him miss the first game of the year. And maybe that's actually still been going around. But nevertheless, everyone wants us to hear about drops because the Chiefs wide receivers can't catch a football, and it's continued. It's continued in all of these games. Like MVS still can't catch a football. He still doesn't know how to, and I don't think he's going to learn anytime soon. And we're paying this guy over $10 million, and he's only made 22 catches on the season. So he's making a lot of money for doing nothing. But here's an interesting fact, though. So we'll go into a little bit of numbers with the drop passes, because I think it's very fascinating. People talk about the Chiefs' drop passes. It's insane. Chiefs have 40 drop passes on the season. The Browns are number 2 in most drop passes in the league, and they have 38. But you don't really hear about the Browns having a drop pass problem. Now, the Chiefs also lead in percentage of drops, basically, like a percentage drop rate. They have a 7% drop rate, according to Pro Football Focus, because they make up statistics. And they have statistics on everything.
Hey, their families have to eat too, Hound. Leave them
exactly.
alone.
No, it's true. Hey, I'm not. And what's interesting is these next statistics, I think, from Pro Football Focus. So they have stats on bad passes and what they also consider on target passes. And they have a percentage, right, of all of your attempts. This is how many percent were bad passes, and this is how many percent were target passes, right? So the Chiefs have the 4th least percentage of bad passes in the league. So they don't make a whole lot of bad passes. Mahomes doesn't. And we have the 3rd highest on target pass percentage. So we make a lot of passes on target. Yet we have a bunch of drops. And what's even more hilarious is that last year when the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl, we were in the middle of the pack in the league in percentage of bad passes and percentage of target passes. And we've actually done better this year in those statistics. But yet we have a lot more drop passes. So people are like, what's wrong with Mahomes? Yes, he's had some interceptions. Some of them due to the receivers dropping the football, like Kadarius Toney, I believe, in the Patriots game.
Yes.
Like, that was insane. Like, he basically handed off the football to the defense. But in any case, I'm not scared of, like, Mahomes' performance. I think he's fine. I'm happy with the progression that Rashee Rice has had. Isaiah Pacheco's back and doing well. He just, against the Bengals, had the most yards he's ever had in a game. And Travis Kelce, we'll see. The defense is doing good. So now that we're officially in the playoffs, people are basically saying either they're one and done or, they can't possibly make the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, we're favorites. Obviously not. But looking at the AFC, I think the Chiefs could easily beat 5 of the other 6 teams that make it, with whoever they are. The hardest one's obviously going to be the Ravens. I think we could beat the Ravens because who knows how the Ravens are going to play in the playoffs. They haven't played well in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson at all, but again, if they play as they do in the regular season, they'll do good. But against the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jags, Texans, whoever, I think the Chiefs can beat most of those teams. Now, I think they can beat the Chiefs too, but I think we have a shot at beating all those teams, pretty evenly. So, it's just a game by game. You just have to win your first game in the playoffs, your second game, and boom, you're in the conference championship, and you just need a few breaks to go your way. So I'm okay with where the Chiefs are at. We'll see how it goes, but I'm excited that we've made another playoffs, that we've won the division. I just want to make it to the conference championship so we can keep that streak going. But outside of that, I think that's all I have to talk about the Chiefs, really.
Well,
So.
I will admit I'm rather surprised of your optimism. You've been very frank about your misgivings of your wide receivers this year, and reasonably so.
You want to know why? Because we stopped throwing the football to MVS. We've thrown him the football like maybe 4 times in the last 3 games.
Oh my gosh.
And Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore have been injured for almost all of those games. Sky Moore is on IR, and Kadarius Toney has been out since the Patriots game. So there hasn't been an opportunity to have drop passes. So it's been great.
Maybe that streak will continue due to Isaiah Pacheco and Jarrett McKinnon being your leading receivers behind Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Yep.
But, I mean, as a New England fan, I would like to have one Rashee Rice or one Travis Kelce or one Isaiah Pacheco. And
Yeah.
even though we have some decent pieces right now, nobody has been thinking about 2023 in New England since like week 5, okay? All of us have moved on. We've been thinking about the draft for weeks. There has been more Patriots fans watching college ball this early in the season than ever before, and it's well warranted.
Yeah.
I could talk about us playing close in these last few games and actually beating the Broncos on Christmas Eve, which most New Englanders took it as a gift. I took that as a lump of coal because that means our hopes and dreams of potentially the number 1 pick were through. The other thing with that is then the other teams that were in the running there also lost. So we lost ground, but we made it up for it this week by losing to the Bills in very unconvincing fashion because it almost felt like we were supposed to win that game and didn't. So I'm glad we didn't, but again, Zappy's only good for a half. And I think New Englanders are still crazy to think that this kid is our future. He is our future. He's our future backup quarterback is what he is. So congratulations to Bailey Zappi to turning my heart of stone against you into a pot of clay for you to be the backup quarterback. Defense has played well and continues to play well. I think that's Bill Belichick trying to coach for his job. And speaking of his job, that's where I want to park my conversation here. It's interesting. Usually we record these on Wednesdays or Tuesdays. We went a little later this week on a Thursday to keep the break going a little bit. Today was an interesting day in New England media. I'm sure most people are unaware of it if you're not in the New England area or not a follower of the team. So what happened late yesterday and then at some point this morning, there were 2 articles that came out independent of each other. One by the national media group, The Athletic, and then one by the Boston Herald, which is, again, a local to New England, but a very reputable one. Both of them were titled something along the lines of the breakup of Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, who Robert Kraft is the owner of the New England Patriots. And the other one was titled something along the lines of the rock bottom of the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. So Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft were both mentioned pretty heavily in both. The Athletic was all about it, and the Boston Herald was mainly about it. The Boston Herald one in particular I found fascinating. I made the mistake of listening to Felger and Maz, who I usually don't listen to because they're more entertaining than they are informative. But I found their takes rather interesting. What the article said for better or for worse, regardless of its veracity or truth value, I have a feeling, considering Andrew Callahan and Doug Kyde, who are very reputable reporters, wrote the Boston Herald article, I don't think they would say something they didn't back up or had sources on. They said that if Bill Belichick had his way this offseason, the current offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots would be Matt Patricia. And his reasoning behind that was that he didn't want Mac to have 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years. I can understand the logic. However, there is a line to be drawn when now Matt Patricia is calling plays right now. Well, not right this second, but on game day, he will be calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles defense. Okay? It's not like he was automatically hired as an offensive assistant somewhere. He went right back to defense once he was let go. Okay, so it was never a good idea to have Patricia back at the helm. And really what that means is Matt Patricia has the title and Bill Belichick is running the show, is really what that would have meant. Next, it made clear that Bill Belichick, and this is kind of common knowledge, Bill Belichick made no concerted effort to really look for an offensive coordinator to replace Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. He knew from the beginning that it was either going to be a former player of his or Bill O'Brien, preferably Bill O'Brien, simply because of the familiarity. Okay, so we got Bill O'Brien. Usually when you bring an offensive coordinator, you allow them to hire some offensive staff along with the coordinator because it would make sense that there's some familiarity between the coordinator and the assistant coaches. Bill Belichick allowed for one hire, and it happened to replace the tight ends coach Nick Caley. And what this created was a schism, a fissure, a Red Sea, if you will, between Belichick and Kraft, and Belichick and Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien to the rest of the offensive staff. It has been made clear in this article that there has been dissension, disagreement, and heated discussion between several of the offensive staff, Coach Belichick, Robert Kraft. Basically, Bill O'Brien, the structure went like this. Usually you would have Belichick, Bill O'Brien, and then each of the coordinators equally are important to Bill O'Brien. But it went Belichick, Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien then actually took time away from positional meetings so that because he didn't trust the coaches that were there to do the job. So he ran the meetings himself and called them team offensive unit meeting. And then he allowed the tight ends coach that he hired to kind of run the show underneath him, and then everybody else was just kind of there. Adrian Clem, who was hired by Belichick as an offensive line coach, apparently had issues with not being heard and brought that up to Belichick and or Kraft, and has now been sick, quote unquote, for the past handful of weeks. Kind of interesting timing there. It just is a story of undermining, adults acting like children, and people set in their ways. And if I was going to make a bottom line, and I kind of said this in so many words the last time we were on here, and now I'm going to make the statement definitive and clear. Bill Belichick, in probably 2 weeks' time, will no longer be the head coach and de facto GM of the New England Patriots. I don't know if he's going to be fired. I don't know if he's going to be traded. The rumors are there are several teams sniffing around the idea of a trade, the Commanders being the team being brought up the most on that front. However, the bottom line is for New England, there will be a new sheriff in town come the 2024 season. For better or for worse, it is unlikely that Bill Belichick is returning, even in an only head coaching capacity, because he is no longer capable of playing with others. Now, all this could change because Bill Belichick and Kraft still haven't had this meeting that they're supposed to have. But the greatest head coach of all time will likely win the record for most wins by an NFL head coach as the head coach of a team other than the franchise that he has won 90% of his games with. And we bid you adieu as fans. But if you are going to run the show dysfunctionally like this and force other people to take matters into their own hands and finger point, that's not how winning organizations work. There's structure, there's alignment, and there's a common goal. And I thought it interesting that somebody brought up, well, usually we say winning cures all. But I guess the converse is also true. Losing brings out the problems as well. So with that, that's what New England has to look forward to. Most likely, it'll either be Mike Vrabel or Gerard Mayo as the next head coach. And that will be interesting. I would love to see Mike Vrabel as our next head coach. I would feel good about the defense, and I think he would keep Bill O'Brien, and I think he would allow Bill O'Brien to pick his staff, and I think Bill O'Brien's plenty good enough with an actual staff that he gets along with to make an offense work. But with that, I have not much more to say. It is a sad day in New England, but one full of hope, hopefully, for the future. And I don't know how you go from the greatest head coach of all time. This is what I hope this doesn't turn into is a Cam Newton situation like it was with Brady, where we just basically get the best, the take a shot at somebody for cheap and just let them run the show for a year and then go get the real guy later. We don't have time for that. We're in the middle of a rebuild right now, and there are some dogs in this draft this year at positions of need for us. Tackle, guard, receiver, quarterback, all of them. And we need all of them in New England. We're not going to get all of them, but we need all of them. And we need people with a single focused ideology going forward to make those decisions when the time comes. I think the defense will continue to be good. It might take a slight step back, but I think Steve Belichick and Gerard Mayo have been running this show mainly on defense for a while, with Belichick kind of assisting more or less. And he's been focused on the problems on special teams and offense, I think, more so than the defense the last handful of years, because that's where the problems have lied. But take heart, New Englanders. Hopefully brighter days are coming. And I hope you can be patient and enjoy the draft process as I do, please, because it is a hoot to hear people talk about things that they have no clue what they're talking about and then be right about it. That's what the best part about it is. It's a regurgitation of what they hear from other people who actually do know what they're talking about. But I have nothing more to say on that, because it is a cluster over there in New England, but it seems like brighter days are coming, and the crux of the problem will be eliminated in the near future. We wish you well, Bill Belichick. I hope you win the title very quickly, and we hope we don't have to deal with coaching against you. However, former Belichick disciples have a very good track record against Bill Belichick. So maybe he's a guaranteed win every year. Who knows? But we'll have to see. But that's all I have on that. So from there, I think it prudent to uplift the room a little bit now that we have finished drowning ourselves in this depression sandwich, that as we call it. I really think it would do us some good to talk about the good players, the dogs of not just last week, because we haven't talked about NFL games for 3 games. So let's talk about some dogs of the holiday season. Who stole Santa's cookies? That's what I want to know. Who is stealing cookies from Santa? And we'll start with LB. LB, who is your dog of the holiday season?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Justin Fields. The Bears have actually kind of gotten hot as of late, and as fate would have it, they have an opportunity to knock the Packers out of the playoffs in the Week 17 matchup they have. If the Bears win, the Packers will be going home. So that could be 2 years in a row where the Packers get knocked out of the playoffs in the last week. But the Bears won on December 31st. They beat the Falcons 37-17. On Christmas Eve, the Bears won 27-16 over the Cardinals. And the Bears beat the Lions on December 10th, 28-13. They lost a close one to the Browns, 20-17, on December 17th. But they've won 3 of their last 4. Large part to Justin Fields. His legs have been a big part of it. Of course, he has the arm talent, especially with the weapon at wide receiver and DJ Moore. They've been getting him involved, but they've been looking like a competent team despite their early struggles. And NFC North division rival, Week 17. I wouldn't count them out. And trying to get to 8-9 and ending with the same record as the Packers, which would end the season at 8-9 if they lost and got knocked out of the playoffs by the Bears. So I'm looking forward to that matchup, despite the kind of tale of 2 seasons the Bears have had. Early on they were very very poor performing team, and now they've really turned their season around and gotten hot, and been looking to finish strong.
Heck yeah. We have talked so much about the Bears, considering that the Bears are not at all on any of our radars as far as interests go. not in any of our divisions, not relevant like a Miami or a Baltimore or anything like that. But yet we find a way to find a reference to Matt Eberflus or Matt Nagy or to Tyson Bagent, who was a dog for them for a few weeks. We have found a way to include the Bears, and the Bears might be the No Pun Intended podcast's wild card team of our season. So congratulations to them for that. Hound, who do you have as your dog of the holiday season? Who got some cookies?
I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford.
Oh, okay.
Because the Rams are going to the playoffs. And, I don't know about you, but I wasn't really ever thinking about the Rams at all. But I didn't think they would make the playoffs. And if they did, maybe barely. But, no, they're making the playoffs, especially in a division that's not even that easy. Like, they have the 49ers, they have the Seahawks, they have the Cardinals, which is an easier team, but they have 2 other teams, one perhaps the best in the NFC, and another team that's a playoff contender as well, and yet they've been playing well. How well have they been playing? Well, they've won 6 out of their last 7 games. Ooh. And that's all, not all, but a lot to do with Matthew Stafford. He's been on fire. In the last 7 games, during this hot streak, Matthew Stafford has thrown 16 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. Very, very good. And that's even more impressive considering that in the first 8 games, he only had 8 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. So he's really turned it around midseason. That team has, and they might be able to make a run on it. Besides the 49ers, I don't know if there's very many, besides the 49ers and the Ravens, to be honest, I don't know if there's any other NFL teams that people are very confident in. So why can't a Rams team make it to the NFC conference, championship, if they could figure out a way to not play the 49ers in the divisional round? But that's neither here nor there. They made the playoffs. Matthew Stafford's been on fire, so he's my dog of the holidays.
Excellent. I've noticed the Rams have kind of been on a bit of a tear. I think having Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, quite the conglomerate of or co-combatants, if you
yes,
you want to alliterate it. But congratulations to Matthew Stafford for having fantastic wide receivers and an under the radar running back in Kerryon Williams, by the way, who's been playing very well. And I had to learn the hard way because the guy I'm playing in my fantasy championship has him, and he, along with every other player, including the guy's kicker, scored 30 to 40 points. So I'm losing that on that front, along with all the other. I'm a little surprised nobody picked Lamar Jackson. I'm going to give him an honorable mention because he had to go through the gauntlet of the 49ers. He had to play another good team, and I'm blanking on what team he had to play. The Dolphins. That's right. He had to play the Dolphins, and the Ravens' schedule worked out to where Lamar had to play that week's potential MVP, and he's beaten them soundly every week. So honorable mention, Lamar Jackson. But he's not my dog of the week. We'll say he's the NFL's dog of the week. Just objectively speaking. My dog of the week. Oh boy, I'm excited for this one. A deep pool here. A man who's no small man. 6'5", 315 pounds. A whopping 24 years old. It's in his 3rd season with, guess who? The New England Patriots. That's right. I'm staying home. Christian Barmore, defensive tackle for the New England Patriots, is my dog of the holiday season, in large part to his Christmas Eve performance where he sacked Russell Wilson by himself 3 times and added a forced fumble, had 8 tackles in that game, and in the 2 games prior, he had at least half a sack. So he had 4.5 sacks in 3 weeks. And he didn't have any sacks last week against the Bills, but that's because he was double teamed the whole time. But he still found a way to have 6 tackles in that game. He's got, 20 tackles, which is a lot in the last 3 games, which is pretty good for a defensive tackle. Usually they are the catalyst to get the linebackers tackles rather than getting tackles themselves. There's some difference makers for sure. You know, your Aaron Donalds and DeForest Butlers and that Chris Jones, of course, being amongst the elite on that. But little under the radar player, but he has been balling out and has been by far New England's best player. Nobody's talking about him because nobody's talking about New England. But if he gets once he gets Judon back next year, look out. It's gonna be a party back at the quarterback, and the quarterback will not be invited. So welcome to the Dogs of the Week, Christian Barmore, Matthew Stafford, and Justin Fields. Congratulations for being our Dogs of the Week featuring Lamar Jackson. And unfortunately, because of the timing of the way all the games worked out, we didn't really get to record an episode specifically for the college playoff, and I was looking forward to doing it, and we were unable to do it, but we were able to do is number one, watch a handful of the games, some of us. But we all did a prediction. And I'll just tell you right now, none of us picked Washington to win. I think we're all, we are all under Ewer fever, I think is what it was. But Michael Penix, like he's been doing, been stealing the car keys from everybody and driving the bus the way home for everybody else. But I'll go down it real quick. Hound had, I've got this all screwed up, had Michigan beating Alabama 24-21 and Texas beating Washington 37-30. LB had Bama beating Michigan 31-27 and Texas beating Washington by a field goal. And I had Michigan winning by a field goal and Texas winning by 8 points. And obviously we were all wrong about Washington. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to pick Washington, but didn't because for some reason I just knew Texas was going to win the game. I also knew that New England was going to be 10-7 this year, so we can see where that's going. But we have a national championship. We have Michigan versus Washington. I think a really nice matchup, kind of very two different philosophies. One's an offensive juggernaut. One is a ball control, defensive-minded team, and it should be a good time. But we also had another game go on, which I'm sure most people turned off after the second quarter, in the Liberty Flames playing the Oregon Ducks with Bo Nix still playing and a handful of other starters still playing. Nice story with the stepbrother thing. For anybody who's watching, one of the receivers is adopted stepbrother to Bo Nix. Really nice story. You know when they're talking about that the game has gotten boring and out of hand, and that's what happened. I will say that I feel like the reffing in that particular game was absolutely horrific. And the college game is also benefited by instant replay. And there were several times where I felt like instant replay could have changed the calls on some of this stuff. And they refused to do it, except when, of course, it would have benefited Oregon. I may be being a hoarder. I might being a little bit of a homer here, but I think multiple people felt the same way. Maybe because all the people that I talked to are also Liberty fans, so maybe the problem is us. But we were leading after the first quarter. I mean, they absolutely drove down the field on them boys and made them look like Swiss cheese. And then after that, I think once they realized they were fighting the refs, they knew that they couldn't beat a team that was better than them plus the refs at the same time. So I feel for those guys, but I think people will realize that the Conference USA is going to be the easiest route to a college playoff bid after this season. So I'm hoping a bunch of people in the transfer portal come over to Liberty. Caden Salters, the gentleman who was quarterbacking for us, is going into the transfer portal, so we will not be seeing him in a Flames jersey again. I will not say good riddance or anything of the sort. I think he played relatively well. However, I think that offense similar to the 49ers offense, could be run by a lot of different players. So we'll see what happens. But any thoughts on the college playoff and where we're at? And, if you have anything to say about Florida State not being in there, I think after watching how they got absolutely manhandled by Georgia, I don't think anybody should be complaining about them not being in the college playoff. But any thoughts? We'll start with LB. Any thoughts on the college playoff? Anybody that maybe stuck out to you? I was a little underwhelmed with Xavier Worthy, who I've been high on, but outside of that, who do you got as some people to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, the clear-cut, obvious answer is just Michael Penix and the weapons he has at receiver. I think there's probably 3 NFL caliber receivers on that roster. I think one for sure first-round receiver and Odunze and potentially another. But the way Penix throws the ball, like the trajectory on the ball, the touch on the ball, the zip he has on it. I mean, he's just an elite passer of the football in terms of just what he can do from the pocket. I'm really pulling for Washington to win. I think I really do think it'll be a good game. I think Michigan against the Alabama game. I think Alabama lost that game just as much as Michigan won it, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Alabama did not play good football for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 quarters of that game. And despite that, they were only down 3. And then at one point were up 4, 17-13. And then, how things ended up going in the fourth quarter, last 4 minutes, that's how it shook out or whatever. But, Bama, they did not look good, I didn't think, as a whole unit. Michigan certainly didn't look great. They had a bunch of special teams issues that really were cutting against them. So I think what I hope is that the Washington offense is just too much firepower for Michigan to handle. I hope that even though Michigan's D-line is really stout and they have a bunch of rotation guys and stuff like that, that the Washington offense can game plan around that to get the ball out quick to nullify the strength of that Michigan team, which is their defense. And then playing complementary, hard-nosed ball and offense, running the ball with Blake Corum, who has 25 touchdowns, and J.J. McCarthy throwing the ball, who I think is an underrated quarterback. I don't think he's a first-round guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think he's an NFL quarterback.
Might be a 4th-round steal.
Yeah, I think he'll get some look. He makes plays. Like he did make a big time throw in that Rose Bowl game, so you got to get credit where credit's due. They did have a couple of untimely drops, but I would hope, and I'm really pulling for Washington. My prediction: Washington wins 37-30, and I think that might be a high-scoring game. I think that's the highest I would really predict this game, just based on how Michigan plays. I don't know how many possessions each team's going to get. With that being said, Washington scored a hurry. So that's kind of how I got to that number.
I hear you. I know you, I don't mean to throw you under the bus, Hound, but I kind of do. I know you didn't really watch much of the games, but I will say the other receiver LB was mentioning, his last name is Polk, and he did a lot of favors for himself as far as a potential draft status. He may be a nice piece to add next to Rashee Rice. So as a casual, this is the way I'll present this. As a casual, coming up on the national championship, what are you hoping to see, whether it's for your respective NFL team, which happens to be the Chiefs that need receiver help, and there's going to be a lot of good receivers and offensive weaponry on the field on both sides of the ball?
Well, you asked what I hope to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I hope to see? World peace. Less hate in the world.
There you go.
Nice.
And I think there is a lot less hate in the world because Alabama is not in the national championship. So I think that made a lot of people's days. Maybe some people are mad that there's a Harbaugh in the national championship, but I'm okay with it. Makes good storylines. I don't mind him as a coach, but I'm happy with it. I have friends who are Michigan fans, so I'm happy for them. So yeah. So I think I am going to see what I hope to see because Alabama didn't make it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you are a Patriots and an Alabama hater, I'm sure, back when both of them were at the height of their powers.
Oh yeah. See, I usually hate over dogs, if you will.
I hate.
I like the underdogs. But since the Chiefs are doing good, it's kind of hard to keep that.
Yeah, I hear you.
A little bit of a different situation.
Yeah,
But
depending how things look, you guys might be going into a game or two as underdogs after you played down the stretch. But
true. No, I just mean in general.
I hear you. Quickly, I know you don't. Just from what you've heard, who do you think wins the game?
I think Michigan. The script's in. It's. I think I'll pick Michigan, partially because I kind of want to see it, mainly just to see what Harbaugh does next. It'll be just a very fascinating situation to see because everyone's going to be kind of wanting him to coach NFL,
Right.
And I don't think he really wants to leave college, to be totally honest.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
I don't think he wants to. But
He might have
if
to.
Michigan, he might have to, and we'll see. So, but if he wins the championship, there's a
chance he has to stay to run it back.
yeah, exactly.
I hear you. Interesting. All right. So I put you down for 27-24 Michigan. I've got Washington 30-23. I think Michigan gets up early. I think it'll be one of those 17-7 halftimes. And Washington goes on a tear in the second half. Now that we're done talking about college and our grievances, I just needed to vent a little bit as a Flames fan. A little bit. Watch for some Liberty offensive linemen to make the cut on draft day, by the way. Now, I'm not saying the top flight pick or anything like that, but in the later rounds, pay attention. But from there, we do have Week 18 matchups with some of them with implications for the playoffs. We'll start with that one. LB, Panthers are the last obstacle in the Buccaneers' way to their path to the playoffs. Do the Panthers get it done and play spoiler?
No, I don't think there's always a chance that they can win. NFL, the saying any given Sunday, any team can win or whatever. But I just, with all the stuff going on off the field, I think if the players weren't checked out, they are probably checked out mentally by now and are looking forward to their off season and making their off season plans. I don't think anyone's dialed in and looking to spoil the Buccaneers season. I feel bad for the players, man, to be honest, more than anything. Like, they come in, put their work in, like, and some of the guys are talented. It's not like there's no talent whatsoever on this roster. I mean, yeah, it's certainly limited. But like I said, it's not totally missing. With that being said, I think Buccaneers win 27-13.
27-13. Very good. And hopefully, even though you don't get a first round, you don't get pick 1-1, you do get pick 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. So I hope that you find your way to fill out the holes in your roster on that and find a head coach that can actually coach it up.
And then a new owner. That'd be great.
Yeah. Can you trade those? Hound, like you said, probably not a lot on the way of starters probably going to be playing for you guys, considering you have nothing to lose, nothing to win. And the Chargers are just haters, and it'll be Easton Stick out there anyways. So
Yeah.
who do you have winning the Chiefs-Chargers game?
Yeah, like you said, like a lot of players aren't going to be playing. Mahomes isn't going to be playing, so that means we have Blaine Gabbert starting. I think starting his first game with the Chiefs, so that'll be interesting because every time he's been put in a game, he's done horribly. So I think we lose this game. That doesn't matter to us. 18-15, just to have a weird score.
I love it. 18-15, and you all taking the L.
Yeah, I don't think there's much hope for our backups.
So that'll put the Chiefs at 10-7, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That is a lot lower than what most people would have had that team. So that's interesting. Patriots are going to be playing in the snow in Foxborough against the Jets. And if there's anything that Bill Belichick loves doing, he loves beating the Jets. So I have the Patriots beating the Jets 27-13. I think Bailey Zappi has a full 3 quarters in him this week. And I have Bill Belichick coaching his butt off. The defense gets a score. And he gets sent off with much applause and snowballs in the air. He had to win under his belt against the team that traded him away. So, Pats beat the Jets 27-13. And I am, you hear me, Hound? I'm picking them to win. I'm picking New England to win a game. And if they do, my secondary mulligan prediction of 5-12 will be correct. So
Hey, there you go.
that would be interesting to say the least.
Thank you for listening to the No Punt Intended Sportscast. Be sure to check out the Thinking Hound and to like, share, and subscribe.